Hello and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm James Currie with the Communication Department, and I'm talking to Dr. Mike Hoppe. He's the senior pastor of Saraland United Methodist Church, and I'm also talking to Stephen Schottgen. He's a behavioral health counselor with us here at MCHD and Family Health. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning.
Or maybe afternoon by the time this airs. We'll see. So we're expanding a little bit on another subject we talked about. We talked about the Enneagram system, and I had this book as my visual aid. It's kind of green screening out on me here, but it's an Enneagram journey to healthy relationships, and it's the path between us. Now, Mike, you and I talked about all the different personality types of the Enneagram and kind of how it relates to your interpersonal relationships, it helps for you to know yourself and then to know everyone else that you're in a relationship with, spouse, co-workers, friends, family, frenemies, the whole list there. But, Stephen, could you tell us a little bit from a counselor perspective, the value of knowing yourself?
Well, anytime we look at our strengths versus our weaknesses, it allows for growth. If we can accentuate what we're strong at, what our strengths are, we can build on those, and our weaknesses we can improve upon. So it gives us a place to start and hopefully a direction towards self-improvement.
I think we'd all agree on that. So if no one knows what we're talking about as far as the Enneagram, let me run through that again real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike. Type 1 is the perfectionist. Type 2 is the helper. Type 3 is the achiever. Type 4 is the individualist. Type 5 is the investigator. Type 6 is the loyalist. Type 7 is the enthusiast. Type 8 is the challenger. And type 9 is the peacemaker. Now, the numbers, they don't have a significance like 1 is better than 9 or, greater than, less than, or anything like that. It's just the categories for this psychological profile. So, Mike, can you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. The Enneagram is just one tool, I think, of many different tools somebody might use to help to understand themselves. There's a lot of different assessments out there. Enneagram's just one. And in my personal life, and then in my role as a leader of a group of people, of a staff, it's helped our staff. It's helped my marriage, just as a tool to help me understand not only how I come across, how I tick internally. Sometimes I respond to things and I don't even know why I respond the way that I do. This is just one tool that has helped me and helped a lot of other people to understand where they're coming from, and then help interpersonally with other people in our lives, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. So I've identified my type, and my whole staff has taken the test. And there's actually books as well where you can, and psychologists have studied how the different types relate in a professional sense, or in even a romantic sense in marriage and those sorts of things. So I found that it's helped me, and I'm glad to be able to pass it on to other people as one resource that could possibly help them. I know a lot of people spend a lot of money, and I think this isn't wrong to do this, spend a lot of time and money with professionals to understand who they are, some of the maybe the traumas early in life that kind of put them in a trajectory, and that's all good. But I think this is one more tool I'd recommend that people consider and try to help them to understand these things in their life.
Yeah, I think Stephen's sitting there nodding his head a little bit like, hey, yes, I'm the professional here, and yes, I have counseled many a person to help. Now, the significance of this Wellness Wednesday in particular is that you all both are counselors. You're both, you both talk to people. But, wellness is not just your physical being. It is your mind, your body, your spirit. So, for someone to be a complete person, all of those things need to be in harmony. I know, for instance, when people come to meet with Stephen, sometimes some of the issues they have maybe stemming from a medical issue first. It has to be corrected before he, does the counseling part of it with a one-on-one type of communication. So Stephen, give me a little bit about that, please.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to have a healthy mind without a healthy body, and a healthy body without a healthy mind. I mean, they're interconnected. So, first you want to evaluate and make sure that medically they're sound, and then go from there. Figure out where the person is at, person, place, time, the whole person, to include physical health, mental health, spiritual health, quality of life, enjoyment. You can be physically sound and just be erect emotionally or life fulfillment, not doing what you feel like you should be doing. And this tool, along with many others, is a good way to self-evaluate, especially being brutally honest with ourselves. Is this something I'm good at, or is it something that I like? Do I take passion in this? And sometimes it's a matter of reconciling all the factors, or trying to anyway.
Yeah, it's we're not promoting one thing over another. We're not saying this is the the cure all for everything, but I think we all agree it's a good starting point, it's a good jumping off point to get you thinking. So you may be sitting around thinking, I can't decide what I want for dinner. I avoid conflict. I don't like to be in the middle of conflict. I just want peace, joy, and harmony. How can I find those things? It causes me anxiety, causes me stress. I'm losing sleep. And then you take the test and you realize, gosh, I'm a type 9. I'm a peacemaker. I think you already answered that one before that. But, that's just an example. To boil it down, I guess, basically with air quotes here, what makes you tick? So if you don't know who you are, or you don't know, how you relate in this world, it's a good starting point for someone that has a faith spiritually, obviously, for somebody that's not feeling well physically or mentally, behaviorally. There's avenues, there's places for people to turn. So, obviously with us here at the health department, we want to help somebody the best way possible, to get them the help and the direction, to link them up, to help them solve whatever their issue is. If it's medical, maybe it's exercise, diet, a pill, or something else. I mean, if it's not one of those things, then it's going to be counseling and maybe something else. So Stephen, so someone comes to you and they just don't know where to start. They just know that they're still in this lag and this withdrawal from COVID, and they're having a hard time adjusting. So where would you start with someone like that?
Well, usually I'd go back to the last time that they remember feeling better overall. When, I don't want to say happy, because sometimes that's like trying to nail Jello on a wall. But when was the last time they remember taking some pleasure out of life, or more pleasure out of life? What were they doing? Who was involved in their life? And what's an obstacle to get back to that point as much as possible? And build on the strengths that they have, and work on the ones that they may or may not have, or may not realize that they have.
I think COVID has heightened and exaggerated a lot of people's anxieties about things. I mean, social interaction. I mean, even though it's been a very brief time in our history lately, that 16 to 18 months has completely done a number on a lot of people. I read an article earlier today, Mike, you might be able to expand on this from a church standpoint. A lot of people just haven't gone back to church. Maybe they don't know how to assimilate back into a social environment. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, that's definitely the case. If someone's listening and they do go to church, you might have noticed there are a lot of many more empty seats than there were before the pandemic. And people, really, some people were using the word trauma, that the pandemic was a traumatic experience for a lot of people in a lot of ways. And people process that in many different ways. And that certainly has played out in churches across the country. A recent stat shows that about 30% of churchgoers that were regular before have stopped going to church across the country. That's a lot of people. So, of course, as a pastor, I appreciate you all looking at the whole being, a whole person as health. It's body, mind, and soul. And from a pastor's perspective, that soul part is important to me. And I think that's part of it. But we're praying people will also find that back again in their life, that will be integrated back into their life as it was before.
Yeah, we hope so too. Also, mind, body, spirit, you're lacking if one of those things is missing. Now, Stephen, Mike gave a statistic there of 30%. Do you think that 30%, not necessarily just for church, but do you think that 30% goes to, there's 30% of the population that's still afraid to go out to dinner somewhere? There's 30% of the population that is still afraid to go into a grocery store? What do you think?
I think it varies, but there's definitely been an increase in anxiety of all types. And most people cite the pandemic and the isolation as a source. It gave us some time to think, and not necessarily on positive things.
Yeah, there's only so much Tiger King somebody can watch, right? Yeah, the pandemic really did. I think it forced a lot of people also to be introspective. You're spending a lot more time at home with your family. You're spending a lot of time with yourself. You're not in a work environment. You're not in a church environment. You're not in a grocery store where you run into your neighbors or classmates or something. So, what I looked at from the Enneagram is, you had this time to yourself. What better way to work on yourself or learn more about yourself, right? So, couldn't hurt, right?
Mixed feelings on that one, because it depends on what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
If we're used to focusing on the positive, then that tends to be where we go. However, if we're used to focusing on the negative, that's that's where we direct our energies. Some of us are fortunate in that we have training and we have a background and upbringing of being more upbeat and being more optimistic, whereas others of us have had different life circumstances, and our go-to is not necessarily the most positive.
Yeah, I think I went through a lot of ice cream there during COVID.
Well, and since we're talking about anxiety and the Enneagram, if anyone decides to take that Enneagram assessment, which you can find online, there are free ones, there are paid ones. But anyway, once you find what your number is, then what's been helpful to me is there are arrows that point to when you're in moments where you're really, really healthy, you tend to act like another number. And then when you're in moments of real stress, you tend to act like a different number. So, for example, I'm a 3, which is the achiever. I get things done. I'm always productive. I'm always moving to the next level, except in moments of stress and anxiety. And I tend, 3s go towards a 9. And 9s can't make decisions about anything. And I've found, wow, that is so true with me. In moments of anxiety and stress, I become overwhelmed and I can't get anything done. And there's just too many options for me. So I think that can be helpful for someone in moments of stress to see how do you respond, generally speaking, when you're going through stress. Different personalities can respond differently to stress.
I agree. We mentioned, we'll also post a link to the test that, the paid for test, but, you can Google, for the free stuff. And the book that I showed, that was free. I checked that out from the Mobile Public Library, but there's also other resources too on YouTube. Just by typing an Enneagram in, there's a whole wealth of knowledge out there about it. Guys, anything else you'd like to add about knowing yourself, understanding yourself, and just basically saying, you know what, I'm not a bad person. just some days I have a day, and some days I just get along with people, and some days I don't.
Yeah. Allow yourself to be human. We're not perfect. And build
Mike,
on your strengths.
there you go. Mike, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll just add something similar, that I think that the more that we discover about ourselves, there are many beautiful, amazing, wonderful things that we can love about ourselves. And like Stephen said, it's good to think about those things, but also the more we learn about ourselves, there may be some things that are broken, that aren't working the way they should, where there's some pain in our life, and it's okay to recognize those things, and those are in our mind, maybe to bring some healing to that, and maybe to get some help that we need for those things, or to work on some of those things. So it's good to have those things in mind as well, to move towards that person that we believe we need to be, or God needs us to be.
Well, on that note, with my phone ringing, that must have been a sign from the church that I probably need to wrap it up. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you for being on Wellness Wednesday, and we'll hope to expand on this topic a little bit further on another Wellness Wednesday. So thank you all for joining us on Wellness Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.